The story of the Red Hot Chili Peppers' climb to international stardom reads more like a thriller than a record company biog. On the way to producing multi-million selling albums like Blood, Sugar, Sex, Magic, Californication, and the latest, By the Way, the band has paid a high price. Today, Anthony Kiedis, Flea, John Frusciante, and Chad Smith comprise one of the most popular bands on the planet, but only two of those were in the original four, who first put the band together back in LA in 1983. The two others then were drummer Jack Irons and guitarist Hillel Slovak, who died from an accidental drugs overdose in 1988 when still only 26. The others too have stories to tell, so much so that one magazine described their story recently as the greatest rock and roll story ever. The drama was of course never intended. The Red Hot Chili Peppers started life as a fun band under the name Tony Flo and the miraculous, majestic Masters of Mayhem. Back then, no one could have envisaged just how much mayhem there would be.
Well, I didn't want to be in a band. It was kind of an accident, and I don't know that I really joined the band so much as we just all kind of walked into the same room at the same time. And I remember the inspiration was a friend of ours by the name of Gary Allen, who was this flamboyant, joyful black gay man who fronted a band called The Neighbors' Voices. It was a really cool kind of progressive French rock band living in Hollywood, and they had a show, and they wanted us to open for them with me singing. Basically, this band at the time called What Is This, with Flea, Hillel, and Jack Irons on drums, but just instead of having the normal singer sing, well, let's let Anthony have a crack at fronting the band, and so we did it as kind of a spoof. And we wrote a song, and it was a really kind of fun song to play, and we went and we played one song opening for this band, and we never really discussed it afterwards. It felt so good that we knew that we had a band at that point, and we just kept kind of marching forward from that night to this night.
I didn't necessarily always want to be in a rock and roll band, but I always wanted to play music, that's for sure. Well, I wanted to play music from the age of around 10 years old. Yeah. I was pretty set on playing music, even though I never really thought in the long term, and I still don't really think in the long term. It's always just sort of one day sets up to next, and whatever happens, happens. But I always wanted to play music. It always seemed like the best idea to me.
We were committed, convicted, passionate, totally consumed with the Red Hot Chili Peppers as, you know, these young guys in Hollywood. It meant more than anything to us, really. You know, it was the full package. It was our gang of friends, and our love for music, our never-ending love for music, and, you know, the perfect kind of creative outlet in this very exciting time in the place we lived. Musically, culturally, artistically, it was a very positive and kind of blossoming era.
Signed to EMI Records, Kiedis, Flea, Slovak and Irons recorded 3 albums between 1984 and 1987. The last was to reach 148 on the US chart. They were finding their sound, if not their audience.
The only one that I'm not really happy with is the first one. I feel like we didn't really capture the energy of who we were at that time. In particular, we had Hillel Slovak and Jack Irons playing drums with us before we made the first record, and they left just before we made the first record. I know that we could have kept them to make the first record, and we would have really had that initial burst that we had and captured it in a good recording studio, which was one of the most exciting and meaningful parts of our careers for sure. And I think that was a mistake, nothing against Cliff and Jack Sherman, but it just, we really, when we started the band, it was a real spontaneous, explosive event, and to have captured that on the first record would have been a good thing. And I think the first record, we were kind of intimidated by the studio, and it could have been a really important record.
But I think for us, every record was different. Every record was, we had learned something from the last record, and, you know, we went somewhere. We didn't keep making the same record over and over. We definitely went places, and part of that, was because we were listening to a lot of music and wanted to experiment with new things, but we had some pretty interesting producers, one after the other, for those first 3 records. So, yeah, we made progress. The world paid no mind, but that was okay. That was meant to be.